So the story of the day, Saturday, basically, that was the game. But like the other game for me, that was the standout game was Australia 2, Turkey nil. Australia put out a really impressive display. And as somebody who's from South Africa, who's seen Australian teams in across sporting codes, I know that they have a never say die attitude. They're always going to work as hard as the opponent. It's very rare you find an Australian team that gets outworked in whatever the sport. Now, the quality may be lacking, especially in football, but you're not going to outwork them. They work hard, they run hard, and they stayed compact and pounced at the right moments, and they made Turkey pay. I know Turkey's captain was talking a big talk leading up to the game. Çalhanoğlu talking about, better than that. And there's nothing wrong with being confident. Nothing wrong with being confident. And especially when you're not lying. I think Turkey does have more footballing quality in comparison, but I just think you underestimate some of these nations that are not famous for football at your own peril, as you know, as we will probably see more and more and more. I mean, we saw at the beginning of the last World Cup, Argentina starting with a shocking loss. I believe it was Saudi Arabia or Iran, one of those nations that were close to the hosts in Qatar at the time. Anyway, speaking of Qatar, they had themselves a game. So like the Australia deserved 2-0 winners, two banks of four, 4-2, two banks of four with the two strikers in defense, pouncing, be direct, take advantage of the chances you're gonna have, because you're not gonna have a lot of the ball, if you're playing against teams like Turkey. So they did a good job, Australia, looking after their protecting their goal, and making sure that they basically um, made the most. They had 37% of the ball to Turkey's 63%. Turkey had 28 shots. Australia had 8 shots. But of the 28 shots by Turkey, only 7 were on target. Australia had 4 shots on target from their 8. So it was expected that Turkey would dominate the ball, but Australia did the most with the ball and got the most important statistic, which is 2 goals to nil, and remove. But the other game that kind of surprised me, because usually Switzerland is a very good team in tournaments. Um, they almost lost, and I think Qatar will think of themselves very unlucky to not have won that game, because they were in it. They really were in it, and they were denied a penalty, and there was just so many things that impressed me about the way they approached that game. I think Switzerland will still be fine, because Switzerland is a very experienced tournament team, and then the other 3 teams, because every team in that Group B, is on 1 point. Nobody won, nobody lost. So I think Switzerland will like their chances to advance. Canada will like their chances to advance. So will Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, Group B is still wide open, but I think Canada and Switzerland are probably going to be my 2 favorites to go through.